Thank you for giving this opportunity. I think it's beneficial. I always take opportunities to talk to graduate students who are in geoscience field because it is interesting to interact with you people because it will be beneficial for you to understand what all things we are doing here because as he has already mentioned, we are in a department of civil engineering and we have a group called Earth System Science and Engineering where I associate with. We are the 3 or 4 faculties are here, and basically mostly when we talk about Earth System Science we have to focus on remote sensing studies. And I'm happy today because I have my batchmate in PhD and my classmate in MSc Tech from ISM. Both of them are here. Happy to be having them with me today. Okay, so we will start. I'll switch off my camera for more bandwidth. Okay, otherwise sometimes you may have network issues, and you can raise your hands or you can speak while I present. There is no issue. We will consider this as an interactive session. I have kept it very, no, I am not focusing on what I am doing in planetary remote sensing. I'll talk about how remote sensing helps in geoscience, okay, for planetary studies. So let us go to the presentation. Okay, I hope you can see my slides. So the topic or the title of my presentation will be Planetary Remote Sensing and Geoscience. So since you are very BSc students, I thought I'll start with very basic or fundamental concept behind how we use remote sensing in planetary geoscience. Okay, so all what we talk about here is energy matter interaction. Okay, so the remote sensing studies are all about energy matter interaction and how we can talk about whether it's energy matter. Then you can remember your physics concepts which are like Planck's law. I hope all of you remember that. Otherwise we will explain it here itself, which states that any body which is having a certain temperature above absolute zero temperature. Absolute zero temperature, when we talk about, it's above the above temperature which is 0 Kelvin. Okay, so any body, any object which is having a temperature above that will emit some radiations. And the emission of that, the radiation, in which wavelength region those energy is emitted depends upon the temperature at which this body is above. Now here you can see a figure, that is the topmost figure which I am showing here, where I talk about solar radiance. There you can see that if you take such bodies, okay, if you consider black body radiation and at a temperature of say the solar temperature, the temperature at which around 6000 Kelvin, which we are talking about. So there, what the maximum intensity of radiation will be in the visible region. Okay, so that is something that we know, and because of that only we get solar radiation in the visible region. Okay, the most of the time on the Earth's surface we receive the visible region radiations only. Now coming to Earth, which is having a 300 Kelvin, which is around to 27 degrees Celsius. If you convert it into Celsius, that is the average Earth temperature. Earth as an object. So in here we are talking about black body radiation. When we talk about black body radiation, we are not just considering the temperature of that black body. Okay. So here, if you consider the Earth, then it is having a maximum emissivity in the range of say 10 micrometer, 10 to 12 micrometer. Now, this is the concept of Planck's law. Now, these are emitted radiation. Okay. Now, when we come to what we are dealing with in remote sensing, so the figure, the lower figure shows about the spectral signature that we get due to, on the Earth's surface. Okay. So what that means is the solar radiation that is in the visible region maximum Yes.
Are you running the slide? We are still in the first page.
Yeah, I am in the remote sensing spectral signature. Are you seeing that slide? The
No, no,
second
no,
slide
no, no, no.
only.
Second slide.
I didn't change any slide after.
Okay, okay. No, we are okay. Now we are seeing the slide. Okay, okay.
Oh, okay. So it's not moving. Now you are seeing this slide.
No, no, we are not seeing the slide. Can you present again the
I'll
slide? Students,
okay.
were you able to see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Second page. Second page കണ്ടായിരുന്നോ? Archana madam, can you present it again?
Yeah. I will stop sharing. Okay. Oh, then it will not become because based on slide only I am talking. So
That's why I asked.
now can you see?
Yeah, we can see the second slide now.
But if I make it
Can you,
in
yeah, presentation.
no presenter mode, that is what you think.
Yeah, click on the presentation mode.
Now can you see?
It is not changing. You have to select one by one, all the slides one by one. Can you select the slide number 4 on the left side? Okay.
Slide number 4.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
You have to click one by one there. It's not moving.
Now you are getting slide number 4.
Yeah, now it is slide number 4.
Okay.
Enter and see if it's moving.
I hope others also can see.
Can you enter it
Now
in?
I am in slide number 3. Okay.
Yes.
So I think I'll go back and come back.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Start
So
with slide number 2. Planck's constant, slide number 2, I have not seen.
no, this is slide number. According to this, it will be slide. This is the
Okay,
second slide,
okay. Yeah, second
third
slide.
slide.
Okay,
Okay.
third slide. Start from third slide. Okay,
Okay.
okay.
So right now I am in third slide where I am showing Planck's law and spectral signature of the atmosphere. Okay. So if you see the this spectral signature, I am writing here the spectral signature, and you can see a very large wavelength region. I'll explain what all these things are. If you can see here, it is written VIS NIR, so it is visible region, and NIR means near infrared region. Accordingly, there are several region of wavelength region in electromagnetic spectra. We'll talk about that also. But here, what you can see is the in the y-axis it is showing. So in the x-axis you have the wavelength, while in the y-axis it is the percentage of transmission. So the solar radiation which is coming on the surface of the Earth will pass through the atmosphere. Now, according to the atmospheric constituents, certain regions will not be passing through. It will remain opaque because all of that particular wavelength region will be absorbed by the constituents that are there in the atmosphere. Because of that, you will get, so that is what the transmission percentage, 100% transmittance only will be shown here. Okay. So this is that white regions are the one which is transmitted. So this is what is happening, and this is the basis. So only those regions will be available for remote sensing of the Earth's surface. Accordingly, the same concepts you can apply for other planetary surfaces as well. So so here, so I think if you have studied any basics of remote sensing, this is the picture that comes from in that. Okay, when we talk about spectral signature, you don't have to worry about what you mean by or what is the definition of spectral signature. But what you can see is that there is a specific wavelength region that is in the x-axis, okay, which is in the visible to near infrared region. This region is where you have three different materials are shown here. So one is water, obviously. The other material is vegetation, which is green in color, which you see as green in color. And why you see it as green in color? Because it is reflected that your leaf reflects the green color from the solar radiation, all the solar radiation that falls on the leaves of the vegetation, only this green will be reflected. And there is something called infrared also getting reflected. See, the infrared also will get reflected, the red infrared region. This particular region is also getting I will use pointer. So what I'm talking about is this particular spectra. This is a vegetation spectra. Now you see the water spectra, it is showing a complete no reflectance, not much reflectance. Okay, so what is that means that when you observe all this in the all these wavelength region, this water, if you give quantify it, it will appear as black in color. Let us because it absorbs everything. That is what it means by that. Now the soil is showing some different characteristic feature. So this is the basic concept where from when you detect such spectral signature using certain detectors in your remote sensing satellite instrument, there you are actually finding what all things are being reflected back from different materials. Okay, so in the left side I'm showing the right side I'm showing how any radiation, when it falls on a surface, what all things are happening to that any energy. Okay, you can say even in the case of seismic energy also, which or sound waves also, the same thing happens. Okay, so what it is happening, one, it is incident, and then it gets a part of it will get reflected, a part of it will transmit, and a part of it will absorb. Now what is that percentage of that will depend upon whether you call it as an opaque material, because when a material gets absorbs everything, it will not transmit anything, then you call it as an opaque material. Correct. So if you a glass is can transmit light, that's the reason you call it as very it's transmitted. Okay, so those are the basic concepts that we are using in remote sensing. So let us go back to the next slide. Okay, where I am explaining what are used in your remote sensing. I hope you can see this basically. Yeah. Okay, so here you see all the different wavelength regions that you are seeing in an electromagnetic spectrum. So now let us, we are talking about the visible region, which is also a part of, when you see satellite images, the normal satellite images, when you see, or the images that you see in Google Earth, these are all because they are, the detectors are detecting in the visible region. That's why you can have such images that you see when you go to Google. I hope all of you have gone to Google Earth. There you can see that the images are shown where you can see vegetation in green color, you can see road networks, you can see your house also, you can detect in Google Earth. So all this is possible because the detection is happening in the visible region. However, we are using microwave region also, thermal infrared region, and then there is this shortwave infrared region also. Ultraviolet is there, X-ray, gamma ray, all those electromagnetic radiations that are there are possible ways of detecting materials, different materials. Okay. Now, commonly observed remote sensing sensors, these are for earth-based remote sensing. We normally use these ranges. Okay, so I have shown that this is a wavelength range which is used for earth observation satellites. Okay, the sensors that can detect reflections or emissions in the wavelength range of this wavelength range is what you observe normally for earth-based remote sensing. Why? Because you will X-ray or UV, you know that the ozone layer protects us from UV. So UV is not coming, not much of the UV is coming. So therefore, whatever that is coming to the Earth's surface, from there, you remember the spectral signature after the atmosphere uh, absorbs the wavelength, certain wavelength is transmittable, and therefore UV is not transmittable. So because of that, you will not be able to use that. The other way of using it is like you have active and passive remote sensing. So in all these cases, we are using passive remote sensing, which means you have solar energy as a source. So the solar energy, which is radiating to the earth and then get reflected after reaching the surface of the earth, it will get reflected back through the atmosphere. It will go back and on the satellite detector of the satellites. That's how it is working. Now, when you use, if you wanted to get a detection for the UV region, obviously you may have to use a different source, because from solar energy you will not get. And X-ray or gamma ray, that these are not so. It's a harmful rays in several ways to humans, and therefore we will not use such wavelength regions in active method also for observing in remote sensing of earth-based satellites. Okay, so that's the reason we don't have that type of thing. While when you come to planetary exploration, there are no biosphere, or humans are not there, and therefore you have the entire range that can be used, whether active or passive. Any method you will be able to use. So that is one particular advantage of remote sensing for planetary exploration. However, when you use these methods, you are not going to in the case of planetary exploration, validation, that is an important part. When you go for earth-based observations, you can go to that place and validate whether your observations are right or wrong from the images. Okay, so you do a certain analysis on the images and come up with inferences. Now those inferences, whether it is valid or not, you can go and check. However, in the case of planetary studies, you are not able to go and check what is exactly there. Obviously, in that is a reason when you use the orbiter missions, or missions like using satellite data is what we used earlier. However, that the recent Chandrayaan 3 mission had a rover, okay, a lander and a rover, and this rover is basically doing the job of you going and finding for validation. Okay, there also you have to use the remote sensing technique, because you actually cannot go and see that. However, you can use this rover or this robotic method and use certain techniques, analytical techniques, to verify those things. So that's how we do this analysis. Now, coming to planetary geoscience, okay? So you should understand that when we talk about geology of planets, what we need to understand is what type of rocks or minerals are there on the surface of the planet or subsurface of the planet. So for that, what method you will use? As I told you earlier, we have this remote sensing technique, which are based on how energy is interacting with the matter. And when energy interacts with matter, then especially the electromagnetic energy, there you have that is what you mean by spectroscopy. Okay, the study of light as a function of wavelength, which is emitted, reflected, or scattered. So there you have the spectroscopy. So when you have spectroscopy, we are using this type of spectroscopy in our remote sensing technique. We call it as imaging spectroscopy or hyperspectral sensors. Okay, you had multispectral sensors, which are used as Landsat or the IRS LIS-3 satellite data. These are actually multispectral. Now, if you have more spectral regions, then you call it as hyperspectral, and that is also known as imaging spectroscopy. Now, you can have imaging spectroscopy where you will create images for that data. However, you can have spectrometers where you will not create any images, but you will analyze the spectra of those for the different wavelength regions. Okay, so here you are seeing a non-imaging spectroscopy where you are seeing different types of, I hope all of you know all these type of rock types and how those rock types will interact with the wavelength region. From here you are seeing 6.25 micrometer to 50 micrometer. So it will come in the infrared wavelength region. Okay, so in that region, how various rock types are functioning is what is shown here. So this is using a spectrometer or an instrument, you will be able to understand that. So However, when you use similar wavelength region in your satellite detector or in your rover missions, you can use the same wavelength region. You can insert a spectrometer in your rover, and then that rover will do the analysis. Okay, so the same type of analysis you can do using a rover mission. So that has been done by many missions. Okay, we will see that. So this spectral curve that you see here for different rock types will give you information about. So you will get this spectral curve, and then you have to infer which type of rock is that. And there
Hasina,
it becomes a little bit complicated.
Hasina,
Yes,
slide 5. We are still in slide 5. Can you change?
yes. We are still in slide 5. Planetary geoscience compositional information. Right, no? Or is it not slide 5?
Now it is slide 6.
It's slide 6. Okay. Oh, every time I think I have to do
Yeah.
this. Huh?
Can you reduce the size because it is going
Now,
out?
is it clear?
Can you reduce the size? It's going out.
Hello?
Can you reduce?
Anybody?
Can you reduce the size? It is going out. Reduce the
Oh,
size. Yeah, it's okay now. It's okay.
now?
Now it's okay. Okay.
So actually, then I have to again explain. So what I was talking about is these spectral curves, okay, for different rock types. So this you can obtain from a rover mission. This type of curves you will not obtain from a remote sensing image. That will be slightly different. We'll come to that. But this type of curves you can obtain from a rover mission. Okay, so this is exactly what they have done in Mars mission by NASA that we will talk about. Okay. So what I'll do, like we will talk a little bit about Mars missions and as a little bit about Moon missions. Okay. So here now, uh, what till now I was talking to you about the fundamental concepts behind remote sensing studies, and from that fundamental concept, how you are going to infer the composition of the planetary surfaces. There are techniques that we use to drill also in on the planetary surface and find out what is beneath the covered layer of the surface also. So such things they are carrying using rover missions. And now what I will do is I'll take two particular missions, like one is the Martian mission and the Moon missions. Now why we study more about Mars and Moon, one reason is that from prehistoric time we have, we always see the Moon, and then the other planet that we used to see, we used to consider it as reddish in color. Even using telescope studies, and during that time even, this Mars was separate from other planets. The curiosity of studying Mars is because of that reddish color in that planet. Unlike other planets, don't show any such colors. So that was the very first reason of studying Mars. Or and we had missions that are sent long back from the Viking missions are all was carried out long back during the Cold War time. So I don't know whether you people, you are from that generation who may not have heard about Soviet Union and all. So we had a time where the US and Soviet Union, these two were the main countries who are going for the space race. Okay, so it is considered as a space race where they were trying to establish their authority or advantage of having the science and technology in space. So there we have especially these two, Mars as well as Moon. Now, once they started going doing missions to both of these planet, I will say the satellite of Earth and the planet Mars. Planet Mars showed a very huge, still now also planet Mars shows a huge interest to humans. The reason is, one is this reddish color, obviously, but after going there, we got lot of information that states that water flowed in that planet's surface. Sometime back, may not be right now, but sometime back there was water flowing on that planet. Okay. Now, how we know all these things we will see. Okay. If time permits, we will go into deeper things. But otherwise, this will be a peripheral knowledge about why we are more interested in Mars. Now, the first and foremost thing is, let us look into the facts about Mars and Earth. Okay, a comparison between both. Now, if you see the comparison, obviously we can see that it has a gravity. Okay, unlike your moon, it has gravity, and that gravity is maybe not like what you experience on Earth. It is 0.375 of that of Earth. Okay, it's very less, but still it experience gravity. The other thing is it has an atmosphere. Okay, but the atmosphere is mostly carbon dioxide. We don't think water vapor is there, but this is the preliminary facts that we get. Obviously, on Earth we have water vapor in our atmosphere, and the number of moons also we have one. Mars has two. Now you also see that the length of the year is double the year of Earth, and the length, but the duration, okay, day duration is almost similar to Earth. We have 23 hours 56 minutes, while in Mars it is 24 hours 37 minutes. So in many ways we have very huge similarity between Earth and Mars. Okay. However, the temperature that you experience in Mars is very different from what you experience on the Earth. Okay, so now let us. I didn't make it into. I hope you can see this. Okay, so the same thing. I am based on this. And the other thing that is more curious to a geoscientist is the structure of the Mars. Okay, so if you see. Mars also is thought to be differentiated like what you see on the Earth. We have a crust, mantle, and core, and similar to that, Mars must have differentiated. That's what from the preliminary investigation of Mars, what we know about. Now, how these type of investigations are done based on the volume and based on the size of that, and based on several other studies like or we understand about what is the density of that planet. Okay, and from that density you will understand how that will be following. I mean, whether it is differentiated or it will have a, I mean, you know that the Jupiter is mostly made up of gases. Okay, so such things, you have terrestrial planets and non-terrestrial planets like Mercury, Venus, and Earth and Mars. Okay, so those things also comes into picture here. So what we should understand here is we have a structure which may be similar to Earth, but we don't have any idea now. So Mars is one of the most uh, sought after planet if you see outside the Earth, and the reasons are many. Like we are still exploring the Mars for life on Mars because we have a lot of proofs that are coming from where we are understanding that it has certain amount of water that must have been present in Mars in one form or the other. Okay, now you have recently there was a publication in PNAS, Proceedings of National Science Academy, where using seismic data, you have a seismic data observatory that they have flown to Mars, InSight it is known as, and in that, from that studies they say that there is at a certain depth you have water in Mars. Okay, so so similar studies are being carried out, and therefore now also if you see the most sought after planet is Mars, and we are feeling that this is more differentiated and it has water and in one form or the other. And if it, now why we are more concerned about whether water is there, that is the main reason of life on Earth. Okay, water in liquid form is a must. That's what, based on whatever studies we have conducted till now, whatever studies the scientists have conducted right till now, it is obvious that liquid water is the way to life. So that is the reason we are searching for liquid water in all planets or even in other outside our galaxy also, we are searching for a planet or a celestial object which can hold water in liquid form, not in ice form, but liquid form. So that is what we are having all these missions about. Now, if you see, now, let me check. Okay, so we have a Mars mission from ISRO. We had this Mangalyaan. Okay, so before Mangalyaan, we had so many missions that was sent by NASA. Now, if you see the Russia also has sent, but of late it was all done by the NASA, the missions by NASA, and here you can see the success rate. All missions will not be successful. You also know that. So we have seen that our we had failed when we did the Chandrayaan 2 mission. However, Mangalyaan 1 and Chandrayaan 1 was a huge success for us. Okay, so first time we were going to outside Earth, and still we could make it. So that is a very important successful story that we can hear from ISRO. So considering that, what we would like to talk about here is different types of missions. So I told you that from long back we had missions to Mars. Okay, so which are either successful or failures. So if you see the initial, I hope you see this slide, right?
Yeah, we can see. It is slide number 11.
Yes, it is slide number 11. So these are all the missions to Mars, okay, including the Mangalyaan. This is here. So now, here we should talk about how we evolved in terms of the amount of information that we are getting. Okay, so we started in 1960s, and there are different missions that are there which couldn't reach even the orbit. But then there are Mariner 4, which could be considered as the first one. Okay, then we had a lot of information that came from Mariner 9 also had informations. Viking, okay, so Viking images were very good. Till now, or now also, people cite Viking images in their research studies. So that's the importance of Viking. While Mariner and all gave very preliminary informations about Mars, and which made us more curious about Mars. Okay, it's not like, okay, nothing is there, let us stop going to Mars. It was not like that. Every time when you visit Mars, there was something or the other which makes us curious about it. So if you see Viking had it landed on Mars, and it returned around 16,000 images, atmospheric and soil data. Now you remember the Apollo missions also for Moon. Okay, we will talk about that. Now coming to the recent, like these are all in 70s. Okay, so when it comes to after 2000, there was a real in all different forms of studies, there was a real booming especially in planetary studies. So here you can see that there were two rovers that were flowing and that were going in the Mars, and these rovers, you can see that these rover missions, the Spirit rover, it was initially was for 2 years. Okay, and now you must have heard that our rover mission also, how many days it was there. Okay, so now if you see this particular rover, it operated for more than 6 years. Okay, the Spirit and the rover Opportunity. The rover Opportunity, it operated for more than 15 years. Now what it is doing, it is walking on the Martian surface and giving back informations from the instruments that are installed in that rovers. Okay, so these instruments are basically from the thermal infrared region. It's not from the visible region, and therefore it is not as colorful like what you get from the Curiosity mission, which is here. However, it gave a lot of information. Okay, so and that information made us to think more about more differentiated Mars, because these two rovers helped us to understand that there are so many different rock types. Initially we were thinking only the only basalts, only basalts are there in the Mars. But then later on, we identified that there are even granitodes. Okay, there are clay minerals. So if you have clay minerals, obviously there should be water. Otherwise, these are hydrated minerals. Now, that is how we got more and more information. Okay, so then later we had this Mars Science Laboratory. Now, I told you that we use missions where we use X-ray, gamma ray, all those regions to get information about rocks on the surface of various planets. Now, this mission also used different types where it has so many instruments. Other than here, I told you that basically it had a basic camera, and it has to navigate. All those things are required for this spirit and opportunity. Now, I was fortunate because when I was doing my PhD, the team who were operating this, they came to IIT Bombay. My supervisor was in connection with them, so they came in there, and then they also showed how it was done. Like this rover mission was done for the first time in such a large scale. So they were showing all those things. So we were fortunate enough to have a collaboration with them, and later, I mean, we use that thermal infrared region in my PhD work also to identify rocks. You remember I showed a one particular spectral curves of different rocks that comes from that thermal infrared region. The beauty of that is because you can identify very clearly different rock types. Okay, so that was the beauty of these particular rovers. Now, coming to this Mars Science Laboratory, there you are basically we are developing, for a particular location. They located a particular place in Mars. Now, I hope you all know that we have Google Mars also. So, after going back after this session, I urge you to go and check Google Mars. Okay, so like Google Earth, you have Google Mars. So many places have been located, named after, and you have so many informations from that also. So that is the reason I thought I'll talk more about Mars first, then only Moon. Okay, so here this is still running. Okay, the Curiosity experiments are going on, and then you have the Mangalyaan, where we had an opportunity to get certain informations for Mars from our side, from ISRO side. We got certain informations. However, if you ask whether technically sound compared to what these people are doing, obviously not. But still, we could make it in the first time. We were successful. We demonstrated that we can go to Mars, and with low cost also compared to what they are doing. We are using it's a low cost, and it was an orbiter mission. Orbiter mission means you are having images from there, and it will be sent like your Landsat or your ISRO satellite data. You will get images from that, and you can interpret it. However, when we talk about rover mission, it will be like a robot that is going there and doing certain missions. So but this compared to this, it will be very less data or expenses you can pay. However, if it is here to inbuilt in your rover, it will become more and more weight, and this rover has to be landed on the Mars mission safely. It should not be getting distracted while it travels from the upper atmosphere to through the Martian atmosphere. It should reach the Martian surface. So that also is an engineering miracle that they have technological solutions for all those things, because you have temperature ranges that will not be that which you experience on the Earth, and therefore it has to be built in such a way. The materials that are there should be built in such a way that it should not destroy because of those frictions. Okay, I think again that problem is there. So this is the image which I was showing. I forgot to go back and then show. So this is the science experiment lab or Curiosity rover. Okay, now there is the Perseverance rover that is moving in the Mars. Okay, the latest one. Now, when I talked about Mars comparison with Earth, there is a very major, similarity that you can see. So here, which makes us to dive more Martian surface. Okay, what is that? Here you are seeing. So like what you are building on Earth. Okay, you have digital elevation model. I hope you know about that, which shows the change in the elevation or the topography of the surface of the Earth. For that, you use synthetic aperture radar, or that is in the radio wavelength. Okay, if you see the electromagnetic wavelength region, it will be at the radio wavelength range. So using that, you will be building the elevation. Okay. Similarly, here it is using LIDAR technology. This is also a part of our remote sensing technology, where you are building the elevation of a Martian surface. Now, this is how it looks like, and you can see that these are all the colors that you can see here. This dark blue means more depression. Okay, and then the white color that you see, I hope you are seeing this. Okay, the mola color shaded relief for Mars. Are you seeing it?
Yes, yes, you can see.
Oh, okay. So the elevation change is shown here. Okay, so you can see that the whitish color is the highest elevation. Okay, so these are three volcanoes that you are seeing here. These three are called the Tharsis volcanoes, and then here you have the biggest volcano in the solar system. It is known as Olympus Mons. Okay, so that is here. So, and then there is this basin, which is a very big depression that you can see here, and this also is a depression. Now, if you look here, you can see the southern hemisphere is at a higher elevation, and the northern hemisphere is at a lower elevation. Now, if you go to Earth, similar things you are observing. What you are observing, only thing, the northern hemisphere is having your all the land mass, and the southern hemisphere is mostly oceans. Or there is this type of a change in the, and that is marked by the elevation difference. Obviously, if you see the bathymetry of the ocean and the land mass elevations, you can see this difference. And this is what you refer to as crustal dichotomy. Okay, so that main striking comparison. And what that means, that if what must have happened on Earth? On Earth, you should have such a depression for the oceans to be formed. All the water that is stored on the oceans are in those depressions. Okay, so that is something of that major striking comparison that you can see between the Earth and Mars, this elevation difference. However, it is in the different hemispheres. Here it is from in the southern hemisphere you have the higher elevation, while in the case of Earth it is in the northern hemisphere. Most of your land masses are in the northern hemisphere. So that is the only thing difference that you have. However, you will see the, this is a very important comparison, and that also makes Mars to be more studied. So what the theories or the hypothesis that we have right now is, maybe this must have been an ocean. Okay, maybe, but all the water must have gone away. How, we don't know, but that is one of the hypotheses that we are always searching to find inferences from other data sets, and that somehow this water must have escaped. Now, how, we don't know. Okay, so that is one thing that we are in search of. And as I said, the Mars is one of the most well studied, and therefore you have a Martian geological map. Okay, so here towards your left side, you are seeing the geological map of the entire Mars. Okay, and and how, obviously it will not be like what you see on the Earth, because here we are going to the field, collecting data, and then making those maps. Obviously here you are using satellite data and then making maps. Obviously it will not be of that higher resolution compared to what you have on Earth, but this is how it looks like. And I told you that these three volcanoes, okay, the Tharsis volcanoes, these are more evident. And according to the time scale. You have created a stratigraphy like what you have for Earth. What you have for Earth, you have a stratigraphy that we have created. Okay, so this is how it looks like, the Martian geological time scale. Okay, so this is how it is. Now, this time scale is built upon the fact that initial Martian surface may not have experienced that much impact or meteoritic showering, and because of that, it will not be that much having a crater formation. So it's basically depending upon the surfaces that are having more craters are considered to be younger according to the Martian geological time scale. Okay, so accordingly, you have basically three main divisions. So one is the Noachian, the Hesperian, and the Amazonian stratigraphic. So if you see, we have Archean, Hayden, Archean, all those things, and here we have Noachian, Hesperian, Amazonian. Amazonian is the latest or the youngest among all those things. Okay, so this is made, and then a mapping has been done. Now I told you that about the Curiosity rover, the Mars science experiment. This Mars Curiosity rover, it is going to a particular section, a hilly section, and is analyzing each and every layer on that section. Okay, so this is how it will look like. Okay, the entire geological map of Mars. Okay, very detailed one. And here in this one, so this is what we are observing. Okay, so here you are seeing certain type of mineralogy or rock types, all those things are shown here. Now this comes from the analysis that has been carried out using these rover missions. Okay, especially the Curiosity rover, which was doing the work like it just climbed up a hill and climbed down the hill, and through that climbing up and down, it studied each and every different layers on that, and then made all this type of information. So that is why you have a little bit more clear stratigraphy of Mars. And we are talking about Martian stratigraphy. Okay, remember that. Now, okay, so in nutshell, if you see, there are various types of landers and rovers on Mars. So InSight is what you will be able to, you can expect more and more information coming from the InSight, which is a measuring the quakes on the Mars. Okay, so from these studies you will be able to understand more and more about the interior of the Mars. Curiosity, then you have the Perseverance. Okay, so this Perseverance is right now working on so different a different region. Curiosity was roaming around this particular region, while Perseverance in a different region, where it is trying to find out sedimentary rocks on the Mars. Okay, so the main aim is sedimentary rocks and life. Okay, so that is the main objective of Perseverance. We may hear something very good from that side. Okay, so Saji,
Yeah. You are online.
it's already 8:38.
Yeah, it's 8:30. No
Yeah,
problem.
I mean,
You can complete.
already 8:38. So how much more time I will get?
No, I expect you to complete, Archana. How many slides more?
I have a moon also, but I can stop anytime. Okay, so you tell
You
me
can just
5 more minutes.
just tell Moon very briefly.
Yeah, I think so. I will just go on to. So this is I will show the stratigraphy that was made from by Curiosity rover. Okay, so this is how it is. See, very clear type of stratigraphy you can see from here. So this is the Gale crater that is showing here where it studied. Okay, now coming to moon, okay, the Earth's moon. So always we are fascinated by moon, and therefore we have so many missions. And as you know, we have this, when there was the space race as a part of Cold War, it was because of, I mean, the Soviets and the US both were trying hard to reach the moon, and as a result of that, we had returned samples from moon's equatorial region. Okay, the Apollo missions brought some soil samples of Apollo mission. Then I visited one of the lab in US, and but I mean there are many controversies around that. We will not go into that. But we have this the moon samples that has been collected from the equatorial region of the moon. It was circulated to all different laboratories. In India, we have Physical Research Laboratory (PRL), where it has been given for studies, further studies. After they did all the studies, they gave it to different labs as a part of the international consortium. So similar things are happening. But however, what happened after 72, we don't know. They are still aiming for the next moon mission, the human mission, which is called Artemis. Okay. Now coming to moon, now we have the Chandrayaan-3 mission, which is which happened to be the most recent one from our side. And as I said, the Chinese people, they were also talking more about, I mean, they are also into moon exploration a lot more ahead of us even. And they also had some return sample from the moon, okay, in the Chang series. Now, what I think the ISRO, what they are planning for is next mission, lunar mission. You must have heard about that. Is to collect some samples, return samples from the moon. Uh, now, my our interest was to. So, if you see, so this is what I was talking about, the Artemis mission, which they are planning to send humans to the moon, and we still wonder why US requires so much of time to rebuild a technology which they have already had in the 60s and 70s. Okay, but let us keep it aside. We will go with what we have from our rover missions. Okay, so we have our own rover, and recently in a week, one week before, there were certain results that came from this rover mission. Okay, so this is your lander, and this is the rover mission. Obviously, from the rover they had two different payloads. One is called the LIPS, the laser breakdown spectroscopy, and laser induced breakdown spectroscopy, and the other one is the alpha X-ray spectrum. So the alpha, that spectrometer studies have, the X-ray studies have already been come in the Nature publication. So where they are saying that where the lunar mission, I mean the Chandrayaan rover landed in that place, it is more of unorthosis type of rocks. That's what it published in 1 week before, 2-3 days before, just at this time when we have the National Space Day. They have already published that results. We are expecting the LIPS results also to come, and there is the other part. So here I have worked on this particular result. Okay, so this is the CHAST. The lander had a CHAST instrument, which was showing, you must have seen this. This is one of the earlier results that came from the Chandrayaan-3 mission, where they are showing that they did a probe analysis on the surface of the moon, and what they found that the temperature is dropping down at a very high rate. Okay, so huge temperature variation within the first 10 centimeter of the lunar regolith. So we did a certain analysis, and from our analysis using thermophysical modeling, what we identified, this we have not published yet. Okay, but I can share you what we have found, that it must be having ice mixed with regolith. Okay, ice mixed with regolith is nothing but lunar soil. You refer it as regolith. So if we have ice mixed in this soil, which we see in permafrost regions, then we can expect such type of a temperature change. Okay, so that is one of our finding which we have done. So why it is important? Because Artemis is planned to be in South Pole. So our Chandrayaan has been done. I mean, our rover is in near to South Pole, and that's the reason it has more significance. Okay, so we can expect more and more publications from these results, and I think we are going for lunar return sample missions. We are going for more and more Mangalyaan missions. Okay, I think they are already going for the Gaganyaan, and I think there is a lot of scope for geoscientists to, because all these studies we have to conduct. Okay, what are the rock types that are on these planets? Okay, if you wanted to plan for a future human habitat on those planets, then the rock types, the minerals, what are the things that are water availability, all those things only geoscientists can be able to tell. So that is where our goal will be. Okay, or that is where we have to place ourselves in the future. Okay, so I think I'll stop here. Just this is my team. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank you, Archana. Thank you, Archana.